I can say right now I am in full remission from my colitis on no medications, simply from improvements in diet alone. A carnivore diet has gotten me back to basically being in full remission from colitis as if I'd never had. To any vegans who are going to come here and try to dispute that you can heal colitis on a plant-based diet, like you can have colitis while being on a plant-based diet, okay, you can. I did it for 4 years. It continually gave me digestive issues. Hey everyone, so welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Josie, also known as the EXPLANTEATER. I am an ex-vegan of 14 years who fully healed ulcerative colitis doing a carnivore or animal-based diet. I always make that distinction because I do still have coffee, I do still have small amounts of fruit. Most recently, it is just avocado. Sweet fruit doesn't really seem to do anything for me, but I healed ulcerative colitis, switching my diet to a mostly carnivore diet, and premature aging, most notably. I healed a host of other smaller health issues, but you can go and watch my other YouTube videos if you are interested in hearing about those things. Today, I'm specifically going to be talking in depth about what I did to fully heal my ulcerative colitis. If you do follow me on Instagram, you are probably aware I made a post the last few days talking about how I had been having diarrhea and constipation for the past couple of months. Those were the two lasting symptoms that I've had that indicated some form of digestive imbalance. Those, most recently, the past month, I would say, have finally healed fully. Without getting too in detail, my bowel movements are regular now, and I no longer have diarrhea, meaning that my digestion has gone back to the way that I remember it being when I was a kid, before I ever had a hint of digestive issues. For anybody that has an IBD, this is like a miraculous thing. This is something that I never, ever even imagined could happen without some form of a medication being introduced, which, yes, I haven't mentioned this yet, but I have never taken ulcerative colitis medication. I've never taken a biologic, never taken anything like mesalamine. Those might be the same thing. Mesalamine might be a biologic, but I've never taken any of those. I did take prednisone for a month when I initially had my worst flare-up. I needed that to get myself back to a state of something that resembled health at the time, to heal my colon and my tissues enough that I could function again. But after about a month, I did stop taking it. I was supposed to take mesalamine and I was never comfortable with it because I had seen that the side effects were the same as the symptoms of colitis, so I never thought it made sense. And I'm very glad that I never started taking it because I did lose my health insurance about 1.5 years ago when I switched job. I haven't signed on to another company yet since then, so it would have cost me a lot of money if I did need to go buy this medication out of pocket. I probably wouldn't have been able to, and it would have led to even worse problems. So yes, all of that to say, I've never taken colitis medication besides prednisone for a month. That was a few years ago, and ever since then, I've been trying to keep my autoimmune in control using diet. For about 4 years, I did that on a vegan diet, and it never worked. Whether or not the flare-up was minor or pretty bad, I had flare-ups on a monthly basis. I never had anything that resembled normal digestion for the majority of my time as a vegan, but it got to its worst when I did come down with ulcerative colitis. And then after that, I was either always constipated, or I had diarrhea. When I was in the worst of a flare-up, I would have urgent diarrhea 10 plus times a day. I would have blood in my stool. All of that has healed eating a carnivore diet. A carnivore diet has gotten me back to basically being in full remission from colitis as if I'd never had it. And I will be completely transparent about if it comes back, if I get another flare-up. But right now, my digestion resembles, again, what I already mentioned, what I remember it being like when I was a kid, when I never worried about my digestion, when it just, all I can remember it being was normal. So I'm going to talk today about how exactly I got here. I'm going to talk about what I eat. I'm going to talk about what steps I've taken to get myself to this point. And quickly to just address this, to any vegans who are going to come here and try to dispute that you can heal colitis on a plant-based diet, like you can have colitis while being on a plant-based diet, okay, you can. I did it for 4 years. It continually gave me digestive issues. I altered my diet and followed my doctor's advice about how to alter my diet, and it only made me sicker. So you guys can make all the counter arguments you want, but in the end, you are never going to change my mind about the results that I've gotten, the improvements that I've seen in my own health. And this video is really for anybody who's at that point. Maybe you are on a plant-based diet, maybe you are just on a standard American diet, and you're sick and tired of having to take medications for colitis, you're sick of having continued digestive issues, and you want some form of a more concrete answer and a more helpful way of eating to deal with your disorder. When I was still vegan, I never would have ever considered eating this way, obviously. It took a long while and a lot of learning for me to get to the point where I was like, okay, that actually does make sense. Maybe I should try this. It literally took me a year to get to this point. But I did start the carnivore diet in February, and ever since then I've seen continued improvement. So anyway, let me just give a brief recap of when and why I stopped being vegan. It was because of my colitis. It was the end of last May. I was going back into another really bad flare-up due to a death in the family. It was something I could not control, something that came completely out of the blue. And again, I could see myself going into another really bad flare-up. And obviously I was against taking medication for my disorder. So I knew that if I wasn't going to be able to get it under control, I could end up back in the hospital. And last year, or at any time, I did not want to end up back in the hospital. So I happened to be reading a book that was about current events, and this really tiny, small section in it mentioned the detriments of not having collagen and cholesterol in your diet from animal foods. And it talked about how bad that is for your brain and your tissues, and that was when it clicked for me that maybe like that's the one thing I haven't tried to get my colitis under control. Maybe I should just try it, and if it doesn't work, then I can go back to being vegan and all will be sunny in the world, and I will know that I'm just meant to be vegan and this is just a disorder that I'm supposed to have to deal with, and I guess I will have to take medication. That was my thinking. So I decided to try the most minor thing I could possibly think of, bone broth, and I did that for about a month. And right off the bat, the first week, I saw improvements in my digestion and I saw improvements in my skin. I can't remember very specifically, but I believe the blood in my stool started to go away. I was having less pain after eating. I was starting to see my energy levels improve a tiny bit. It wasn't drastic changes, but the biggest changes that I did notice were in my digestion. Again, that was the whole reason I decided to even consider having animal products again. So I had very positive side effects from having the bone broth, but it didn't fully heal those really bad symptoms I was experiencing, obviously. So I was still having diarrhea, but it was getting to be less frequent. The blood in my stool was actually healing almost fully just from having bone broth, but not 100%. The pain after eating was starting to get a little better and improve, and the low fevers that I would get on an almost daily basis when I was in a colitis flare were going away. I don't think I had them at all at this point. So from that logic, when having the bone broth went really well, I decided, okay, obviously eating some animal products is a good idea for me. Let me try having fish and eggs again. Once again, it went so well. I started to see really big improvements in my skin and my energy levels. And again, this was, I would say, after about a month and a half of reintroducing animal products, and it was just eggs, fish, and bone broth that I was having at this point. So the blood in my stool started to heal. The diarrhea was not urgent anymore, I believe, and I was getting it maybe twice a day, or I was constipated. The pain after eating again was so much less frequent. It was maybe happening like once every couple of days, again, because fiber has, in retrospect now I know, it's been a huge aggravator of my gut. So again, fiber was still setting that off because I hadn't cut all fiber out of my diet at this point. And I no longer had any fevers. So again, that went really well. It took me, I would say, about another few weeks or so to consider, okay, like logically, clearly these nutrients in these animal products are doing my body good and healing my body in a way that a vegan diet couldn't. Maybe I should have chicken and turkey again and see how that goes. Once again, it went so well. I never had even a hint. Let me be clear about this too, because people get concerned about having animal products again, especially meat, after not eating it for X amount of time. I had no digestive issues from eating meat again. I cannot promise you or tell you that you will have the same experience, but from that, it might have been because I eased into eating, like, say, beef again so much, because I took such small steps each time of reintroducing just one product or one food. That could be why I never had digestive upset, because I really did ease into it. And maybe I did prime my digestive system with the bone broth initially, but still, the way my digestive system adjusted to eating meat again was like I wouldn't have even known I'd ever stopped eating it. I had such ease when I did start eating every single type of meat again, including beef, but I'll get to that. So the chicken and turkey, including those again, went really well. I believe that is when the blood in my stool fully healed, fully went away. Again, the pain after eating hadn't fully stopped because I was still having fiber and I was still having seasonings. I hadn't cut all of that out, and I was still dealing with diarrhea and constipation. So if I didn't have diarrhea, I would be constipated for a day or two. But the diarrhea also was not of the same nature that I'd had when I was in a really bad colitis flare. I maybe had diarrhea once or twice a day, if that, where when I was in a bad colitis flare, I would be going to the bathroom 10 plus times a day. So again, it was of a completely different nature. At this point, if anything, I would say that my symptoms were more of like an irritable bowel disorder rather than like full-on colitis or Crohn's disease. So when I saw the blood in my stool fully heal, I knew that I'd already known this, but obviously animal products were a part of my diet that I needed, essentially. Those ideas were starting to become less foreign to me because I was being exposed to these people that did eat and live in this way where they'd taken all of them out and they were thriving. I found people like Steak and Butter Gal around this time. I found Ken Berry. I'd found Anthony Chafee, all people like that who really normalized this idea for me and made me realize it wasn't as crazy as I might have thought at the outset. So I would say this was about after 5 months of reintroducing animal products, and I'd already introduced bone broth, fish and eggs, chicken and turkey, and I was starting to become comfortable with the idea of reintroducing beef. And as a person who used to be vegan, I'm sure if you were in the same boat, you probably have the same stigma around beef that I had. I thought it was super bad for you. I thought it caused heart disease. I just had all these really horrible beliefs about it. I thought beef farming or, cattle farming was contributing to the environment being polluted and global warming. I thought all of that stuff at one point, which I think that all of those things are not as simple as they seem, and they're not as truthful as I took them to be when I was vegan, but that's a whole other video. But anyway, I say all of that to enforce the point that beef was the scariest thing for me to reintroduce and the hardest thing for me to come to the point of wanting to eat it again. Finally, I did get to that point. And I was watching all of these YouTubers who were eating organs, who were having organ supplements, who were eating a ton of butter and lard and beef fat or beef tallow, which is rendered beef fat. So finally I was at the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to try beef again. And the first time I had steak again, I had this just feeling of calm throughout my whole body. It was the weirdest thing I've ever felt from a food. I've probably repeated this in a few videos, but it's relevant here as well. I had this feeling of calm, and I had that the next few times after I had beef again. So I don't know what it was necessarily. Maybe it was the creatine, maybe it was the super bioavailable B vitamins in the beef. I don't know exactly, but whatever it was in the beef, it made my body feel as if I was supposed to be eating it. I had this, like I said, feeling of ease and calm in my body. And after that, my digestion had improved a lot already, but that was when I really saw a lot of changes in my skin. My skin improved a ton at that point. My mental health was also improving a lot. My anxiety was reducing drastically. Again, because of probably these nutrients that I had not been getting in the past decade of my life. So all of that to say, it was also improving my digestion, but I definitely had a great foundation already for my digestion to have improved a lot. So I wasn't seeing as drastic of changes at this point in my digestion. I was still dealing with diarrhea and constipation on and off. I would say this was around like January of this year. I drastically reduced the amount of fiber I was eating. I was getting down to really not eating any vegetables anymore. I'd taken out gluten from my diet. I'd taken out most seasonings, but not all at this point. I was still having things like Tabasco sauce. I was still having things like flavored coffee. I was still eating a very small amount of processed foods, like especially like whole grains. I believe I was still having, or starches I was still having, like potatoes. So I was eating what would be considered like a hyper-carnivore diet, just with like a very small amount of other foods, but I hadn't completely cut out all of those foods that I mentioned. So I was still having a like very minor digestive upset, where I would have like a slight pain after eating sometimes. I would still get constipated, especially after I would eat fruit or like anything with fiber, and I was still having some diarrhea. So in February of this year was when I went all in with carnivore. All in, I would say, is that I started a pretty strict hyper-carnivore diet, I guess. I had taken out all seasonings besides Redmond's real salt and Tabasco sauce. That was like the one thing I was holding on to for a while. I was still having some coffee, like usually about 2 times a day, with half and half, organic half and half, or organic or grass-fed milk at the time. I did stop having anything but heavy cream, but I'll get to that. And otherwise, I was having just meat, eggs, and fish. I was still having processed meats at the time, meaning like grass-fed hot dogs or sausage or bacon. So again, those things did have very small amounts of seasonings in them, but otherwise, again, I had cut out everything besides Tabasco sauce and Redmond's real salt to season just plain meat. So that was going well for a while. As I mentioned, I did have a lot of improvements once I reintroduced beef, but I saw further improvements in my mental health and my mental clarity and my energy levels once I took this extra step to take out almost all carbs besides fruit. I was still having minor digestive issues, and going into, I would say, like March, I was dealing with just diarrhea and constipation still on a daily basis. And the diarrhea, though, as I also had mentioned already, was still almost, it was getting to the point where it was like once a day if I did have it. So again, completely different from when I had ulcerative colitis. Finally, I got to the point where I was watching a lot of these YouTubers and doctors and listening to other people who healed from things like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, and I was recommended by a few people to try a PKD-oriented diet. So it's a form of the carnivore diet or a paleo diet, but I believe it is just super high fat, no dairy, and it's just meat and eggs. It's no supplements either. So I did orient my diet towards that. I did take out all supplements, but I didn't do it 100%. I was still having dairy on and off. I was still having coffee. I could never cut out coffee because I just love it too much. And I've never really seen too big of a detriment from continually including it, so I did keep it in. But I did go down to eating no fiber for, I would say, about 2 months. And I feel like that did give my digestive system a break that it needed. Finally, this past month or so, I would say since like June, I started to see another pretty big change in my digestion. Like the diarrhea finally did start to go away. And the few things that I can say that I've done specifically that finally got me to this point are, I cut out all seasonings besides Redmond's real salt. So I cut out even Tabasco sauce, which was hard, but it made a huge difference. Like the Tabasco sauce was totally causing constipation for me still. So I cut out everything besides Redmond's real salt. I cut out all natural flavors, meaning even coffee and seltzers, I only buy plain unflavored when it comes to those things, and anything else that might have a flavoring in it. But otherwise, I'm really not ever encountering that in any foods that I eat, because I'm not eating any processed foods. And I started eating much higher fat. So not only have I been having Wagyu beef, and I understand that that's not something everybody has on hand all the time because it's a more expensive cut and it's not always available to everyone, but I was having a lot of Wagyu beef the past month because I just had it, like I happened to have it at the time. The company I got it from actually was First Light Farms. I would highly recommend them. Their Wagyu beef is amazing and it's 100% grass-fed. But anyway, yeah, I was having that. I have been adding tablespoons of beef tallow to my coffee. I use beef tallow and butter to cook with. I eat little pieces of butter sometimes as a snack. So I really feel like this past month, as I've been eating higher fat, that really brought me the extra mile to get my digestive system to the point where I no longer even have had diarrhea. And I've been regular. So I go once a day and it is no longer diarrhea. I'll leave it at that. I don't need to go in detail about it. But the fact that I've gotten to this point without medication is insane to me, because as sick as I was like early last year, I can't believe I'm at this point now where I don't even on a daily basis think about the fact that I ever had colitis. I'm no longer affected by it. And again, I will be 100% open about it with you guys if I do have a bad flare-up again. If something does happen, if maybe an ingredient that I at some point decide to include starts to affect me negatively, if coffee starts to affect my digestive system. But right now, thank God, I feel like I never even had colitis. I am 100% healed from it. You know, those last two things were the only things that I was waiting to see if they would get better, and they finally did. So like, just to actually wrap this up and to add, sleep has also been a huge factor in this as well. Because of the way I've been eating, I would say because my body is more nourished now, I sleep a lot better. I fall asleep a lot easier at night. And all of these things improving compounds to take away a lot of the anxiety that I used to have, especially for mundane reasons. So again, that is also contributing to my cortisol not spiraling out of control, because I'm not getting anxiety about so many things that I used to get anxiety about. My well-being is so much better because I'm feeling so much better from the way that I'm eating. That is the only thing that I've changed and continue to improve. So nobody can say that it's from random coincidental factors. That makes no sense. It is 100% from my diet and from the things that I've included and from the things that I've taken out. So yes, sleep and less anxiety due to my diet improving. No seasonings besides Redmond's real salt, which also helps with my electrolytes. No processed meats. I did take out all processed meats, I would say like maybe 3 months ago, because they just weren't agreeing with me anymore. So that means that I eat just plain cuts of beef or ground beef, plain pork chops, plain chicken. I eat all different types of cuts, but it's always unseasoned, unprocessed. That is what agrees best with me. I do try to get grass-fed and pasture-raised meat whenever I can, but it is not something I focus on. It's more unprocessed meat that I focus on. Same thing with any other types of products. Eggs, milk, I get it. Dairy, I still only buy either organic or grass-fed or raw, but eggs as well. Egg products, I only buy just either hard-boiled eggs as is, or I buy just plain like pasture-raised eggs. I usually do buy pasture-raised eggs. I love Vital Farms, but I don't buy like egg products or anything like that. In terms of beef tallow and added fats and ghee, I buy organic and pasture-raised butter. I buy organic beef tallow. That's another thing that I try to always get the highest quality. It is not the most vital to buy organic as it is to buy unprocessed without any seasonings and oils added to it. So that's the way of eating that's gotten me to this point. I'm not saying that if you also do have an irritable bowel disorder or colitis or Crohn's, the trajectory of your disease is going to go exactly as mine did, but I can share my experience to maybe help you be able to relate to it and see where you can tweak things and change things in your diet. If anything, I think that the advice of doing a more PKD oriented diet is what helped me the most, meaning the higher fat, taking out the seasonings, taking out the supplements, and really just focusing on plain, unprocessed meat and eggs. I really think that was what brought me the farthest in dealing with this disorder. So I can say right now I am in full remission from my colitis on no medications, simply from improvements in diet alone, and as a byproduct of that, lifestyle as well. I think that this video also could help anybody who is considering reintroducing meat, but I will be making a separate video about that to talk more in depth about that specifically. But yeah, I hope that this does help you guys, especially for the people that are suffering from an irritable bowel disorder. I know how much it sucks. Anyway, so that was a pretty serious video. I do want to say thank you guys so much for 2,000 subscribers on here. This blows my mind. I can't believe like all of the support. I'm so appreciative of it. And I can't believe that I'm at 12,000 followers on my Instagram. That again blows my mind. I did want to add, as I add in a lot of videos, I get a lot of questions and messages. I try to get back to as many as I can. I don't want people to have the misconception that I am doing this for a living. It is not what I do for a living. I definitely enjoy making videos and would like to do more with it in the future. But all that to say, I do work full time, so I try to get back to as many messages and comments as I can. Sometimes I do have to get back to them all in a general sense by making a video about it, so never hesitate to message me a second time. Never hesitate to comment on something, giving me a suggestion to make a video about. Leave a question that you have. I try to get back to as many as I can. If I see the same question a lot, I group them all together and make a video about it. So yeah, I appreciate all of your support so much, and I want to help as many of you as I can, but I'm doing as much as I can with the time that I have to focus on this right now. But hopefully as time goes on, things will start to shift a little bit and I will be able to devote more time to this. But right now I do have to be mindful of making an income from my job. So yeah, I hope you guys do understand that. I did want to also tell you guys, you can get Carnivore Crisps for 10% off with my code EXPLANTEATER. I will leave the link down below. I love these. They're a godsend for me because as this whole video mentioned, I can't really eat anything with seasonings in it, with oils in it. It does not agree with me. It does not agree with my digestive system. It will make me sick again. These are literally just, I mean, these are my favorite ones. These are chicken breast, but all that they are made with is chicken breast, purified water, and Redmond's real salt. And Redmond's I love as well because it has, not only does it make the food taste better, but it also has the benefit of electrolytes. So it's a win-win. I love these. And they're super convenient to bring around with you when you go out to places or when you travel. I will be traveling with these when I go away later in the year. But yeah, I just wanted to tell you guys, if you do want to try them, you can get 10% off. And I always will have the link down below with my code. So the next video that I am going to make is definitely going to be how to reintroduce meat for anybody. I have had a lot of people ask that question, and I know a lot of people are interested in an in-depth video about it. So look out for that. It'll be coming out pretty soon. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you in my next video.